Good evening, friends, fiends, and night owl supremes. Welcome to A Bit Late. I hope that the evening finds you well and in good spirits. Or if the day's not going great, hopefully it'll be a bit better here shortly. We can always hope that, right? But whatever's been going on until now, take comfort in a story. Tonight's tale is full of disguises and captured kings, and of course, because it's a fairy tale, miscommunication or no communication. Why? I mean, we wouldn't have fairy tales if people actually communicated in stories back in once upon a time, so what are you gonna do? Anyway, get comfy and cozy, gather your animal familiars about you, find some blankets, pillows, light your candles and your fairy lights, and get ready and settled for tonight's fairy tale from the Violet Fairy book, The Lute Player. Once upon a time, there was a king and queen who lived happily and comfortably together. Oh, that's so refreshing. Usually it's like they didn't like each other or they had to get married, but no, this is great. They were very fond of each other and had nothing to worry them. Good. But at last the king grew restless. Of course. He longed to go out into the world to try his strength in battle against some enemy, I guess it doesn't matter who, and to win all kinds of honor and glory. Well, that sounds like a battle for a battle's purpose, not like for peace or anything. Great. Cool. Not cool. I'm not condoning this, obviously. So he called his army together and gave orders to start for a distant country where a king ruled who ill-treated or tormented everyone he could lay his hands on. Did you hear that through the grapevine, or is that a known thing? The king then gave his parting orders and wise advice to his ministers, took a tender leave of his wife, and set off with his army across the seas. So this isn't even close by them, and they're just like, we want battle, and we hear that this guy's not very nice, so we're gonna go battle him. Wow. I cannot say whether the voyage was long or short, I guess, because it's in the Odyssey, we don't know. But at last he reached the country of the king and marched on, defeating all who came in his way. But this did not last long, for in time he came to a mountain pass where a large army was waiting for him, who put his soldiers to flight and took the king himself prisoner. He was carried off to the prison where the king kept his captives. That's a tongue twister. And now our poor friend had a very bad time indeed. Wasn't all fun and games, was it, Sir King? All night long the prisoners were chained up, and in the morning they were yoked together like oxen and had to plow the land till it grew dark. The state of things went on for 3 years before the king found any means of sending news of himself to his dear queen. But at last he contrived to send this letter. Sell all our castles and palaces and put all our treasures in pawn and come and deliver me out of this horrible prison. That's an extreme reaction. Everything we own, sell it to get me out of here, please. And he would be king of nothing, right? The queen received the letter, read it, and wept bitterly as she said to herself, how can I deliver my dearest husband? If I go myself and the king sees me, he will just take me to be one of his wives. If I were to send one of the ministers, but I hardly know if I can depend on them. She thought, and at last an idea came into her head. She cut off all her beautiful long brown hair and dressed herself in boy's clothes. Then she took her lute and, without saying anything to anyone, she went forth into the wide world. The people weren't like, where's our queen? She's gone? She traveled through many lands and saw many cities and went through many hardships before she got to the town where the king lived. When she got there, she walked all around the palace, and at the back she saw the prison. Then she went into the great court in front of the palace, and taking her lute in her hand, she began to play so beautifully that one felt as though they could never hear enough. And she magically speaks the language of these people who are far across the sea, so far away. By the way, fairy tales, man. After she had played for some time, she was just playing before, she began to sing. Okay, words. And her voice was sweeter than the lark's. I come from my own country far into this foreign land. Of all I own I take alone my sweet lute in my hand. Oh, who will thank me for my song, reward my simple lay? Like lover sighs, it still shall rise to greet thee day by day. I sing of blooming flowers, made sweet by sun and rain, of all the bliss of love's first kiss and parting's cruel pain, of the sad captive's longing within his prison wall, of hearts that sigh when none are nigh to answer to their call. My song begs for your pity and gifts out from your store, and as I play my gentle lay, I linger near your door. And if you hear my singing within your palace, sire, oh, give, I pray, this happy day to me my heart's desire. Sorry for the singing, friends and fiends, but no sooner had the king heard this touching song sung by such a lovely voice than he had the singer brought before him. "Welcome, O lute player," said he. "Where do you come from?" "My country, sire, is far away across many seas. For years I have been wandering about the world and gaining my living by my music." Now that's either a lie or her husband has been in prison for many years and this plan took a lot longer than she was expecting. "Stay here then a few days, and when you wish to leave, I will give you what you ask for in your song, your heart's desire." So the lute player stayed on in the palace and sang and played almost all day long to the king, who could never tire of listening and almost forgot to eat or drink or to torment people. The singing is so good he almost forgets to be a meanie. Wow, but he still finds the time. So, wow, that's something. He cared for nothing but the music and nodded his head as he declared, "That's something like playing and singing. It makes me feel as if some gentle hand had lifted every care and sorrow from me." After 3 days, the lute player came to take leave of the king. "Well," said the king, "what do you desire as your reward?" "Sire, give me one of your prisoners. You have so many in your prison, and I should be glad of a companion on my journeys. When I hear his happy voice as I travel along, I shall think of you and thank you." Wow, that's some flattery. Well played, queen. I mean, lute player. Wink. "Come along then," said the king. "Choose whom you will." And he took the lute player through the prison himself. The queen walked amongst the prisoners, and at length she picked out her husband and took him with her on her journey. And the end. Happily ever after, reunited. No, I'm kidding. We have a lot more story to go, because of course we do. They were long on their way, but he never found out who she was. Communication, and she led him nearer and nearer to his own country, and he doesn't even know it all this time. When they reached the frontier, the prisoner said, "Let me go now, kind lad. I am no common prisoner, but king of this country that I almost pawned off. Anyway, let me go free and ask what you will as your reward." "Do not speak of reward," answered the lute player. "Go in peace." Oh boy. "Then come with me, dear boy, and be my guest." "When the proper time comes, I shall be at your palace," was the reply, and so they parted. So many chances for the truth, and yet, the queen took a short way home. I love how she knows the country better than him and she can just take a shortcut. And he also didn't know he was nearing his own country. Oh, I love the queen. She's awesome. Anyway, the queen took a short way home, got there before the king, and changed her dress, and didn't answer any of the palace's inquiries as to where have you been all these years, queen? We were alone. We elected someone else to lead, or we chose someone else. I don't know if they can elect in monarchy. I don't know. Probably a counselor. Overthinking things. It's what we do here. So anyway, literally, she just changes into a dress, and an hour later, all the people in the palace were running to and fro and crying out, "Our king has come back! Our king has returned to us!" The king greeted everyone very kindly, but he would not so much as look at the queen. Then he called all his council and ministers together and said to them, "See what sort of wife I have. Here she is, falling on my neck, but when I was pining in prison and sent her word of it, she did nothing to help me." Oh, buddy, if only you knew. Communication. Also, your plan really stinked. Stunk? It really stunk. And his council answered with one voice, "Sire, when news was brought from you, the queen disappeared and no one knew where she went. She only returned today." Then the king was very angry and cried, "Judge my faithless wife." So that's the logic leap there. Not, oh, wow, what a coincidence. She was gone, I just got back. No, she was cheating on me with another king. Wow. Never would you have seen your king again if a young lute player had not delivered him. I shall remember him with love and gratitude as long as I live. Funny how you didn't recognize his wife's face in Lute Player? So much for love. I don't know. Whilst the king was sitting with his council, the queen found time to disguise herself. Why? Like, she just changed out of that disguise that she's worn for years. Anyway, I'm exasperated. She took her lute and, slipping into the court in front of the palace, she sang clear and sweet. I sing the captive's longing within his prison wall, of hearts that sigh when none are nigh to answer to their call. My song begs for your pity and gifts from all your store, and as I play my gentle lay, I linger near your door. And if you hear my singing within your palace, sire, oh give, I pray, this happy day to me my heart's desire. As soon as the king heard this song, he ran out to meet the lute player, took him by the hand, and led him into the palace. Here, he cried, is the boy who released me from my prison, and now, my true friend, I will indeed give you your heart's desire. Kinda cringe, I don't know. I am sure you will not be less generous than the other king was, sire. I ask of you what I asked and obtained from him. But this time I don't mean to give up what I get. I want you, yourself. Steamy, saucy. The lute player and the king. My. Wink. But we don't get to dwell on this long because finally, as she spoke, she threw off her long cloak and everyone saw it was the queen. Gasp. Who can tell how happy the king was? I don't really like him. In the joy of his heart, he gave a great feast to the whole world, and the whole world came and rejoiced with him for a whole week. The whole world, whole week. Because he finally recognized his wife. I was there too, and ate and drank many good things. I shan't forget the feast as long as I live. Well, I am so happy. The end of this disguising fairy tale? I'm not sure. Like, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of opportunities just to, communicate with your love, your partner about like, hey, I'm saving you from prison, but I had a better idea about how to do it. Instead of, pawning off all the castles and kingdoms, and where would anybody live then? That's displacing so many people from their homes, right? I found this better way, but then the king comes home and he's like, oh, what a mean wife. She didn't even want... Anyway, you heard the story. You get it. The frustration. But it had a happily ever after ending, which is kind of cool, and things are just as they were before he felt the need to go to war. But I hope your day or evening is a little better now, and if you need some more stories, check out more stories on the channel. But now, off to sleep and dream what you will, or stay a while and enjoy another tale. Whichever you choose, I'll speak to you again, and until then, stay spooky, my friend. Good night.